Welcome to tax season. Filing tax paperwork can sometimes be an intimidating task. However, this video is here to help with step-by-step instructions on how to fill out Form 8843. Get your pen and Form 8843 ready. We are about to begin. Firstly, let's make sure this video is for you. This video is only for UTD F1 and J1 international students and their F2 and J2 dependents who meet all of the following conditions for the current tax year, which is the last calendar year. 1. You are a non-resident alien for tax purposes. And 2. You did not receive any U.S. source income. Please note this instruction is not for J1 non-students, such as professors, research scholars, short-term scholars, teachers, etc. Please contact the UTD Tax Compliance Office if you are a J1 non-student so you can learn more about how to file your taxes. In general, most international students are considered a non-resident alien for tax purposes. If you have been in the U.S. under F and J student visas for fewer than 5 calendar years, then you are considered a non-resident alien. If you have been in the U.S. under F and J student visas for more than 5 calendar years, you need to take the substantial presence test to determine your tax status. Please contact UTD Tax Compliance Office if you are not sure whether you are a non-resident alien for tax purposes or not. What is U.S. source income? Some examples of U.S. source income are wages or salaries from on-campus employment, CPT employment, or OPT employment. Taxable scholarships or fellowships, such as teaching assistantships, research assistantships, or housing stipends, prizes or awards. To determine if you have taxable scholarships or fellowships, you need to look at your qualified education expenses. Qualified education expenses are amounts paid for tuition, fees, and course-related expenses. Qualified education expenses do not include room and board expenses, living expenses, medical expenses, research expenses, travel expenses, and other non-tuition expenses. If the total amount of your scholarship or fellowship exceeds the total amount of your qualified education expenses, the difference between your scholarship/fellowships and qualified education expenses is taxable. If you received any U.S. source income in the tax year, you can use Foreign National Tax Resource, or FNTR, an online tax preparation software for non-resident aliens for tax purposes, to generate and file Form 8843 along with your federal income tax return Form 1040-NR or Form 1040-NREZ. Please refer to utdallas.edu/ICP/taxes on how to gain access to the software. If you did not receive any taxable income in the tax year, please continue watching for instructions to file Form 8843 to the IRS. The hard part is over. Now let's move on to completing Form 8843. It's easy enough. Form 8843 is an information statement that is filed annually by F1 and J1 students and their F2 and J2 dependents who are non-resident aliens for tax purposes and have had a presence in the U.S. in the tax year. For F2 and J2 dependents, each dependent, even a minor child, needs to file Form 8843 to the IRS. Form 8843 demonstrates that you are exempt from the substantial presence test and eligible for non-resident alien tax status and are therefore exempt from taxation on income earned outside the U.S. You need to mail Form 8843 to the IRS by the due date for federal income tax return, which is usually April 15th. Please check exact dates for current tax year. If you don't file Form 8843 on time, you may not be exempt from the substantial presence test, which could result in you being considered a resident alien for tax purposes under the substantial presence test and become subject to tax on your worldwide income. This is what Form 8843 looks like. You will need to print out the form, fill it out, and then send the form via mail. There is no electronic way to submit this form. Download Form 8843 from the IRS website at irs.gov/F8843. Make sure you are filling out the form for the correct tax year. The tax year is in the large text at the top right corner of the form. In general, F1 and J1 students and their F2 and J2 dependents only need to complete parts 1 and 3. To fill out this form, you will need a pen, not a pencil, and information from your passport. Let's begin. At the top of the form, there are 2 blanks for you to write in dates. You do not need to fill this out. You can leave it blank. Next, you need to write your first name, middle name initial, and last name. Your first name is your given name. If you do not have a middle name, then you do not need to write a middle initial. Your last name is your family name. The next box asks for your U.S. taxpayer identification number. If you have a social security number, write it here. If you have an ITIN or individual taxpayer identification number, write it here. If you do not have either, that is okay. Leave this blank. Next, enter your address in country of residence. This should be your address in your home country. If you are unsure about this address, log in to your Orion Student Center and look for your SEVIS foreign address. Your address in the United States should be where you live right now in the U.S. This address needs to be your most current address where you currently receive mail. If you are unsure about this address, log into your Orion Student Center and look for your home address. It is very important that your U.S. address be written correctly. An example address is listed on the slide. Your U.S. address must include street number, street name, apartment number if you are living in an apartment, city name, Texas, and lastly, a 5-digit zip code. Now we move on to Part 1, General Information. For 1A, enter the visa type, F1, J2, etc. you used to enter the U.S. most recently and the date you first entered under that visa type. There should be U.S. Port of Entry stamps in your passport, and you need to enter the date of the first F or J visa stamp in your passport. The date you entered here is the date you initially entered the U.S. to start your studies under a F or J student visa. If you went home for vacation and came back, you do not need to enter the new entry date. Please note, the visa you used may be expired, or your current immigration status may be different now. That is okay, and these changes will be reflected later in 1B. For 1B, enter your current non-immigrant status, which should be the same as 1A unless you changed your immigration status while in the U.S. If you didn't change your immigration status, you just need to enter your current immigration status as you stated in 1A, and no date is required. If you did change your immigration status, enter your current immigration status as well as the date of change. For example, if you enter the U.S. in F2 immigration status and then change to F1 immigration status while in the U.S., you need to enter F1 as well as the date that your change of status was approved for 1B. For question 2, enter your country of citizenship. If you have dual citizenship, enter the country with which you have the closest connection. For 3A, enter the name of the country that issued your passport. It will most likely be your country of citizenship. For 3B, enter your passport number. This information is listed in your passport. For 4A, enter the actual number of days you were in the U.S. during each year listed. Make sure you count the actual number of days you were physically present in the U.S. and exclude the days when you were outside of the U.S. For 4B, enter the same number you entered in 4A for the current tax year. Complete Part 2 only if you were a researcher, scholar, professor, or teacher in the U.S. under a J or Q visa during the tax year. For F1 and J1 students and their F2 and J2 dependents, do not fill out Part 2. Part 3 is required for F1 and J1 students and their F2 and J2 dependents. For questions 9 and 10, enter exactly what is on the slide. If you attended more than one academic institution during the tax year, you should enter the one you attended at the end of the year. For 11, if you were in the U.S. under F, J, M, or Q visas during the years listed on the form, please enter the visa types you held for each year. If your visa status changed during any of these years, attach a statement showing the new visa type and the date received. For line 11, only take F, J, M, and Q visas into consideration. Do not include other visa types, for example, Visitor B visas. Leave blank for the years which you were not in the U.S. under F, J, M, or Q visas. For 12, if you have been in the U.S. as a student, researcher, teacher, professor, and/or trainee for more than 5 calendar years, mark yes. Otherwise, mark no. If you mark yes, you usually are no longer exempt from the substantial presence test and need to take the substantial presence test to determine your tax status. If you mark yes for this question, please email taxcompliance@utdallas.edu to be referred to a tax expert. For 13, if you have not taken any steps to apply for U.S. lawful permanent resident status, also known as green card, mark no. If you have, mark yes and explain on line 14. These steps include, but are not limited to, filing a labor certification application, a petition for permanent residence, an immigrant visa application, or an application for adjustment of status. Important, if you mark yes for either line 12 or 13, you should consult a tax expert, as you may be considered a resident alien for tax purposes. Skip parts 4 and 5 of the form unless you are a professional athlete or have a medical condition. If you are filing an income tax return Form 1040-NR or Form 1040-NREZ, do not sign the form on page 2, but include Form 8843 in the same envelope with your income tax return. If you are not filing an income tax return, sign and date the bottom of page 2. Congratulations! You have successfully completed Form 8843. Now make a photocopy of your completed form for your records. You will send the original form to the address listed on the screen. Please note that each individual who only files Form 8843 must mail the form separately from any other form or anyone else's forms. Be sure to mail this form before the deadline, which is typically April 15th. More instructions about when and where to file are also listed on the Form 8843 instruction page. To mail a letter in the U.S., you need to write the recipient address in the middle of the envelope. In this case, the IRS is the recipient. Write your name and address on the envelope in the upper left corner. Place a stamp in the upper right corner of the envelope. If you need to purchase stamps, they are available for purchase at the UT Dallas bookstore and Comic Card office. If you would like more information about tax preparation, please view these helpful websites.